Welcome to Yahoo Finance's Spotlight on Small Business. Small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. These are the businesses that are owned by our neighbors. They line our streets and contribute to our communities. To give you an idea of how popular small businesses are, a recent Gallup poll found that small business to be the most trusted institution in the U.S. So that's why over the next hour, we are going to discuss the issues that small business owners are struggling with, as well as the strategies that they are using to succeed.
Lot to get to. The U.S. consensus counts 32.5 million small businesses in the U.S. That represents the heartbeat of our economy. Though many are thriving out of the pandemic, numerous challenges await, including higher interest rates, the labor shortage, supply chains, regulations, access to capital, just to mention a few. Isabella Casillas Guzman is tasked with removing those impediments, or doing her best to do so. She's the U.S. Small Business Administration Administrator. Great to have you here. We hope to address all those issues, but when you talk to business owners across the country, what is their single biggest concern today?
Well, and our small businesses have been remarkable and resilient and have really helped to spur that recovery, the historic economic recovery that we've seen in the Biden-Harris administration. But across the nation, no matter what industry, they continue with that grit and resilience and hope for the future. They're about creating their dream of business ownership. And so obviously the challenges in the marketplace that they've been navigating since the pandemic began persist. And a lot of times it's finding the right employees and retaining those employees, or dealing with supply chain disruptions, trying to pivot their model so they can keep on serving their customers, which is what we all rely on them to do. And so they've obviously needed that extra support, and that's what the SBA is all about, is making sure they get the funding that they need to grow their businesses, as well as the resources to figure out how to improve operations or expand their revenue base.
Yeah, Isabella, speaking of funding, PPP was largely successful when you take a look at the fact of how many businesses, small businesses, the PPP loans helped. $755 billion were loaned out to 11.5 million businesses nationwide, helping to retain 86 million jobs. When you take a look at the funding that's needed today, how much improvement have we seen since we hopefully have turned the corner on the pandemic?
Well, PPP was a lifesaver for our businesses. And as they continue to try to navigate the pandemic, those extra relief funds through the American Rescue Plan were really critical to helping, especially the smallest of the small, which is, what we focused on in the Biden-Harris administration, is helping those who may have been shut out of early relief get that capital. They've had to sustain quite a bit in terms of the length of time dealing with this disruption. But our small businesses, we are trying to create those pathways to capital if they need it. And, if they were able to access grants locally or other support, that's been really critical to helping them carry through. But since it's the holiday season, I'd be remiss to say that really small businesses across Main Streets are really dependent on a strong holiday season. So as we think about spending our holiday dollars in shopping this season, thinking of our small businesses who have local employees and benefit the local economies, is really where we should be spending our dollars.
Indeed, it is difficult out there, and we mentioned a couple of these issues. If we could drill down a little bit on the two biggest factors I'm hearing from small businesses: one, that higher interest rate environment, and inflation. How are they impacting our small businesses across the country?
Well, just starting with inflation, obviously tracking that there's been some moderation, and so small businesses have had to, in many cases, pivot in their product mix to be able to still offer competitive prices to their consumers. They've had to figure out how to increase prices and at what time, and how to continue to market and support maintaining their revenue base despite price increases. And so it's been a challenge, and I think what we've positioned to do is help businesses manage to that bottom line. We have over 1,600 centers across the country who are helping small businesses with free advice to figure out some of those daily challenges that they might be dealing with inflationary pressures or supply chain disruption. I think that the interest rate environment, obviously, we're continuing to see strong demand for SBA's products. We offer affordable loans to small businesses in both fixed and variable rates. And so with small businesses needing capital to maybe leverage opportunities on the horizon with those historic investments in infrastructure or the future energy of America, I think that's where small businesses need to make sure they're exploring all their options, finding lenders, including those who work with the SBA products, to get the capital that they need to grow their businesses.
Isabella, you mentioned labor shortage as being one of the issues that's facing small businesses these days. There was a recent ADP survey finding that 52%, over half of small business owners, say the biggest challenge right now is finding qualified job candidates. It's a tough competition out there when you take into account the wages that workers are demanding today. How can small businesses better position themselves in order to attract that top talent?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, I think that, within our small business development centers, our women's business centers, our SCORE mentors, and our veteran centers, we try to provide that support, connecting small businesses to the workforce development resources that are available to them so they can find talent and take advantage of any special programs to help them retain those employees as well. I think that now more than ever, their ability to manage workforce, to create a culture and environment, to retain employees is critical. And so that strategic advice around HR challenges, benefits that can be offered, are things that we offer through our advisory network. We want to make sure that small businesses have access to all the technologies as well as the strategies so that they can compete with large firms for those for those employees around their communities. And honestly, as a result of PPP, so many small businesses were able to retain their employees. I also speak with so many business owners who have built up strong loyalty. They are like families in many cases amongst their employees. And so those types of culture differentiators is really what helps small businesses grow and retain their employees.
Isabella Casillas Guzman, great to have you, Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Well, coming up, we will take you to a holiday market in New York City to find out what traffic has been like this year. And we will also tell you how the COVID pandemic changed the face of small business. We'll be right back.
beginning to look a lot like Christmas here in New York City at Union Square's holiday market. Small business owners are facing big hurdles, including inflation, which is at its highest level in over 40 years. So high, will people actually shop through it? Yahoo Finance reporter Danny Romero spoke to some of the smaller shop owners to discuss their outlook on the holiday season. What did you hear?
So this holiday market at Union Square, it's a tradition. It's been a tradition for 29 years. And this year it's back in full swing. It's also an opportunity for these small business owners to really end the year making a little bit more than what they started with. Take a look. It's a very New York Christmas at Union Square. Its annual holiday market has returned, and so have the shoppers.
It's very festive and it's fun to be outside, and it's really great to be at the market and be supporting local artists and small businesses.
And for some, it's been a treat. Brandy Odie, visiting from Georgia, found a very special Christmas present for her son.
I'm very excited about this gift, actually. I'm going to put it in our suitcase and then as soon as I get home and wrap and put it under the tree. He won't know what it is. He didn't ask for it.
With more than 180 booths, it's hailed a must-visit destination for unique gifts and created by local craftsmen and artists.
I sell everyday jewelry as well as bridal and special occasion, and I basically make everything by hand using hypoallergenic metals and freshwater pearls, Baroque pearls, and semi-precious gemstones as well as Swarovski.
It's this foot traffic and people shopping local at these marketplaces that's kept this small business owner afloat.
I think like the brick and mortar, it's tough to get foot traffic that these types of markets get. It's one of the best places to sell in the entire world in terms of foot traffic. It's constant.
But this year, it has been a bit more challenging.
I've had to put all my prices down actually because I want to be able to have things that people can afford, because my demographic is people from age like probably 20 to and up, and a lot of us are young professionals and we have student loans. We aren't able to buy a $75 pair of earrings. So we like to say our average price here is probably around $50, and it's a splurge from a lot of people that are just barely making rent, especially in New York where it's literally just the rent paycheck to paycheck for everyone, even people working in the corporate world.
While some try to weather the storm, others are debuting their products for the first time.
This was a pipe dream. I wanted to be here for over 10 years. It's very sentimental. I used to go to Parsons. I graduated in 2010. And so I would come here all the time and look at all these artists.
However, the environment has changed since then. Customers are cutting back on spending amid high inflation.
I will say I have noticed that this year people are buying like lower amounts from my space. Instead of spending $100, they're spending maybe $40.
There's good news though. The National Retail Federation estimates retail sales 6 to 8% higher than in 2021, while a Gallup poll shows Americans plan to spend more on gifts than they have in the last 3 years. That's giving hope for this vendor, who's paying a pretty penny to have his booth open at the holiday market.
On average, I'd like to make like over $1,000 a day, like a couple grand, between that ballpark.
And you can hear right there that these vendors are really relying on the support and the sales from this holiday season, but also, a challenge that they've been facing, particularly this week, is the doom and gloom. It's been kind of rainy these past few days, so they've told me that a challenge that has really impacted and weighed on their sales has been the weather.
Yeah, certainly could be challenging here since we know how critical the holiday shopping season is. Danny, any idea what some of these small business owners, what their outlook is as we look further out from the holidays and into the new year?
Obviously they have a lot of optimism still as we go into this new year. But like you heard, one of the small business owners, she's had to cut some of her sale prices in order to meet her customers' needs. That just tells you the environment that we're currently in right now. And so another sticker shock that I heard from some of these vendors has been the fact that to have their pop-up booth open, they pay $18,000. And one of these vendors—
That's for the season.
That's okay. For this market place.
Month, right?
Yeah, yes, for the holiday market, yeah. And one of these vendors told me that she needs to make over $30,000 in sales to cover her operating costs.
Wow, that's very, very expensive.
Hard to imagine
that's
hitting that mark.
Yeah.
exactly. And that's a lot of money for some of these businesses that clearly, I would guess, don't have it at this point.
Yeah, like you heard, the price ranges are from $10 to $50. So
A lot of sales. All right, Danny Romero, great stuff. Thanks so much. Well, despite uncertain economic times, over 4 million new businesses were started in the first half of this year. So how are all these new businesses handling everything from payroll to benefits and even hiring employees? That's where companies like Gusto.com comes in. And we want to bring in their principal economist, Liz Wilkie. Liz, it's great to have you. So you're helping small businesses when it comes to payroll, when it comes to benefits. I'm curious just what your conversations have been like with these small business owners over the last several months.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm happy to be here. Gusto provides HR, payroll, and benefits for over 200,000 small businesses in the United States across all industries. So we hear a lot all across the spectrum. Some businesses are really excited about new opportunities that are coming up for them. Some businesses are really struggling. We've seen industries bounce back in leisure and hospitality and healthcare and education, where there's just been huge demand from the pandemic, and businesses are really taking advantage of that. And we've also heard from businesses that are doing more personal services and in-person services that really took a hit during the pandemic and are trying to figure out still, what their next move is and what they look like in the future.
And just about, Liz, every aspect of life has been transformed really by the pandemic. What's been the biggest change or evolution for small business?
Yeah, for new businesses in particular, in 2020, we really saw most new businesses in the retail and trade services, like had sort of been happening in years prior. And then in the last survey that we did, we really found that most new businesses, or sort of a plurality of new businesses, 42% are in professional services. The people that are seeing these opportunities are, like you said, sort of taking advantage of the fact that the whole world has changed. They're much more digital. They're going into sort of high value services. They are taking advantage of opportunities, but they're still, facing some headwinds. Business owners are the most agile, adaptive, and resilient people, but they still are facing some real struggles. Talent and getting the right talent in is really the biggest thing that we hear from them, as well as sort of the rising costs of things because of inflation.
You also say, though, Liz, the face of small business, of entrepreneurship has changed. How so?
Yeah, so women are really taking advantage of the opportunities that have come from the pandemic. They started 49% of the businesses, nearly half in the last 2 years. From prior years, from government data, we know that number hasn't been much above 28% since before the pandemic. Also, Black founders were about 3% before the pandemic, and now that number has tripled. So really just people are seeing new opportunities, and they are sort of thinking about how to take control of their lives and to build that sort of independent entrepreneurship life for themselves. We are really seeing new business owners look drastically different from business owners prior to the pandemic.
And Liz, the reason why so many small business owners are starting a business, has that changed as well?
Yeah, I mean, most of them have started a small business because they are seeing opportunities from the pandemic. They have quit their jobs because they are seeing opportunities that the pandemic is offering up. They are seeing opportunities to have new types of workers and workforces that will allow them to do their businesses better. Gusto is part of that. Gusto is part of the digital transformation, and the fact that Gusto exists to do all of these sort of functions that you might have had to do with pen and paper before is really also helping small businesses and entrepreneurs get right off the ground and sort of start a business with very little capital, and to just sort of from day one just look like a smoother, much bigger business than they would have before the pandemic. And I think that really is sort of a sea change that we're seeing.
And Liz, we hope to avoid an economic downturn, but certainly with all the big bank CEOs and economists talking about one, what are the best tips for those small businesses in the eventuality that we don't get that soft landing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, businesses are really sort of trying to plan for all scenarios here. And, one of the real interesting things about this economic time is that we are thinking about sort of a recession or a pandemic, but we will never have entered a recession where there are almost 2 jobs for every unemployed person in this country. And what we hear time and time again from small businesses is that they have such big talent challenges. So they are thinking about, how do I manage my talent costs How do I keep workers that are good, happy, and here? How do I avoid having to try and get new workers in if I can keep the ones that I've got? And so they are sort of really trying to manage costs, and they are also really trying to think about how to invest in the talent that they have and attract new talent. And they're doing that by offering new benefits, and they're doing it by seeking new sources of talent, both in contracting and in offering remote work, because it's really influencing the types of talent that they can attract into their small business.
Remote work at the top of the list you hear for people looking for jobs right now. Gusto principal economist Liz Wilkie, very interesting conversation. Appreciate that. Coming up, a small business owner tells us how she uses social media to grow her business, one that has more than $1 million in revenue this year. Stay tuned. Estimates suggest nearly 220 million Americans will shop online in 2023, representing more than 20% of retail sales worldwide. And no, it's not all on Amazon. Our next guest, Mimi Striplin, is the founder of the Tiny Tassel, a jewelry, clothing, and accessory store in Charleston, South Carolina. What a wonderful town it is. Nice to see you, Mimi. You've seen your business skyrocket recently since going digital. Tell us how it worked for you.
Yes, I started online back in 2015 in my apartment kitchen making tassel jewelry, and we have grown and evolved this business in so many ways to now offer a selection of clothing designed by my mom, more styles that we're able to scale and keep up with our customers' demand. And it's been really cool to use social media platforms like Instagram Shop and live selling to reach our customers.
Yeah, Mimi, when you try to quantify, I guess, the impact that social media has had on your business, what do you attribute that success to? How have you been so successful on social media? And some tips that you can offer some other small business out there in terms of how they can grow their presence.
First and foremost, we show up consistently on social media. even if we have a lower sales day or a really, really high sales weekend, our customers are expecting us to show up there on Instagram for our live shopping events. Typically every Sunday afternoon, we're launching new products, sharing restock, sharing my favorite things in the shop. And one of my biggest tips that I give other small businesses is just try it. Get out there, let your customers know. It's such a fun way to interact, whether you have a brick and mortar presence like we do, or if you're just online. It's a great way to connect with them live and be able to reach them and convert customers to actually purchase from your site.
And other platforms have helped you along the way. Shopify, PayPal. Talk about how those have helped grow your footprint and how others might be able to use them.
We have been using Shopify for years now, and it is such a low entry, low barrier, low risk platform for us where any small business can get on, set up their website, not have to pay a large sum of money to get it up and running. And it's allowed us to scale using different apps and programs that integrate with Shopify. We've been able to track our inventory, to sell online worldwide, and of course, to sell on these social media platforms by using Shopify. And PayPal just adds an extra layer of convenience for us and for our customers. They're able to check out seamlessly, use PayPal, and we know that these checkouts are safe and they're quick and easy.
So Mimi, in addition to the e-commerce business, you mentioned you have a physical store in Charleston. Talk to us just about the importance of a storefront and whether or not you have plans to expand your brick and mortar print.
Our storefront is so special. It is such a happy and joyful space here in downtown Charleston, and it has served as a way for us to bring our online experience to life. And so many of our customers visit Charleston. It's such a destination city, and they get to walk in and really experience our shop, our products, our customer service in real life. And it has been so special for us to welcome customers in from all over the world, to share our favorite styles, show them clothing in person, have them try it on, so then they can leave and be the biggest fans of the Tiny Tassel, go back to their town, or let it be here in Charleston, tell all of their friends and family members about this amazing small business that they get to shop.
Mimi, millions of businesses around the country just like yours. They open up the doors. They have a cute store and clothing and people want, but they don't know how to get the word out there. Just give those people step one in growing your business from that single store, brick and mortar.
Step one would be to just shout it from the rooftops who you are. Don't be afraid to tell others about your business. Be really excited about it, because the energy that you have about your store, and especially your storefront, will create such a buzz around it, and others will just feel like they have to get there. They have to come in and support your business. And of course, rely on your community. Ask others to share. Ask others to pledge to coming in and shopping and buying just one Christmas gift from your storefront. And just by doing that, connecting with your customers and followers in that way can make such a huge impact on business.
Well, other small business owners should be listening to your advice. You had over $1 million in revenue this year, consistently growing over the past couple of years. Mimi Strickland, great to have you, founder of the Tiny Tassel. Thanks so much for joining. All right, well, coming up, we speak to two restaurant owners about how they are dealing with everything from rising costs to hiring. And as we head to break, Yahoo Finance's Brooke DePalma went to one New York bakery to see a boom in traffic, foot traffic, thanks to social media. Let's take a look.
We're here at Lafayette Bakery in NoHo to check out the viral Supreme croissant. Now, lines form 3 times a day at 8, noon, and 4. And rain or shine, there's already a line forming.
Instagram and TikTok said it is the best croissant you will ever try. So here I am waiting in a 3-hour line to get a croissant.
Foot traffic's insane, obviously. We started by selling about 36 a day, and now we're at about 340 a day. And that's pretty much our capacity of what we can make in our kitchen.
I was lucky enough to give the Supreme a try. Worth waiting in line in the rain? Well, that's up to you. But it really is an incredible croissant.
I think it's a great success story, like especially after being closed and after what all the industry went through during COVID. It took like 3-4 weeks to take off, and after that it's just been scaling and trying to make more of everything, just to keep up with the demand.
The pandemic has had a devastating impact on the restaurant industry. The National Restaurant Association estimates about 90,000 restaurants nationwide have either closed permanently or long-term because of the pandemic. Joining us now with an inside look at how the industry is faring today, we want to bring in restaurant owner Tia Jackson. She's behind TJ's Southern Gourmet, which is now located outside of New York City in New Jersey. Tia, it's great to have you. Your family's restaurant, I know, has been around since just around 1990. You recently moved from New York City to New Jersey just before the pandemic. How is your restaurant faring today?
Thank you so much for having us and spotlighting the industry. Today, honestly, we're one day at a time. The restaurant industry is, a tough business just to begin with. And for us, when we started here in Englewood, New Jersey, lucky us, we started just before the pandemic. The response has been favorable with the community, but with the pandemic, rising costs, rising labor costs, it has been extremely difficult.
And those costs, you say, have doubled the cost of doing business, of course, because of inflation. Where are you seeing those costs rise the highest, and how many of them are you able to pass on to the customer?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been difficult because we try to hold, without passing the cost to our customers, because they too are very price sensitive. And a business like ours is very community oriented. And so we're seeing a lot of it in, what you're seeing in the grocery stores, and eggs, and which are triple the cost. What cost me $20 is now costing me $100. And it's very difficult. It's become difficult to not pass those costs, or at least share the cost with our customers, who for the most part understand.
And Tia, you made some changes to your restaurant, to your business. What have you done in order to navigate this very uncertain and challenging time?
Yeah, so we had to pivot upon pivot, as you know, a lot of us have done during the pandemic. And so now we are trying to just change our model a little bit. People are returning back to work, and there's companies out there who are looking to bring our restaurant to their corporate offices. And so we partnered with some of these companies to focus more on corporate catering, and literally focusing on that a majority of our days, and then allowing us to gather, as we love to do here at TJ's, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and hoping that will give us a nice balance in time over time to get through this hump.
The word pivot has been often used by businesses across the country over the last couple of years. What has been the biggest thing you've learned, the biggest lesson you've learned through that could help other business owners? Tia?
Know your numbers, have balance, and you've got to, for business owners, I'm a SCORE mentor, and one of the things that I think has helped me is knowing why I started this in the first place, is connecting with our customers and reminding myself every day that it's bigger than even the food that we serve. It's about connecting with our clients and serving great food.
And Tia, we've been talking to a number of business owners this afternoon. One common theme, one thing we keep hearing about is the challenge that it's been to hire the workers that you need. Are you experiencing this? And I guess, what are you doing in order to get some of those workers through your doors?
Well, it's very difficult. That's the other issue. On any given day, and it's part of our success, right? So my mom and I, we've been doing this so long. So literally, we know how to cook. We know how to serve, and we could also be your dishwasher for the day, because it has been difficult hiring. It costs more to hire people, and then a lot of them are not even returning back to work for various reasons. And so what we've had to do was almost try on any given day, be all things to all people, which leaves me as a single mom exhausted and not able to be fully strategic in my business because I'm at capacity. So I'm just hoping that this is over soon, but we're doing our best to try to have the balance that we need to get through it.
Well, we better tell everybody what they can eat when they come out and see you. What's the best thing on the menu?
I think the most popular people love is our fish and grits, our chicken and waffles. Everybody loves biscuits with sausage gravy. And that's what's so amazing about TJ's. It's authentic, it's delicious, and you feel good while you're eating it here.
I was going to go for the barbecue ribs, but you swayed me a little bit there.
Yeah.
We'll come
Everybody
see you.
has their thing, right? So you got to try that too. I'm sorry.
We'll come see you, Tia. We appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Sounds like she has a customer there. All right. The labor shortage has had a big impact on restaurants. The industry is 462,000 restaurant jobs below pre-pandemic levels. That's according to the National Restaurant Industry. But while some establishments are cutting back, others are expanding. The Pancake Pantry in Nashville, Tennessee opened a new location 1 year ago, doubling their footprint. Chip Bradley is the managing partner. He joins us now from Music City. Nice to see you, Chip. How is business? What have you learned the last couple of years?
Yeah, great to see you, and thanks for having us on today. You know, through the last 2 years, we've learned a lot about how restaurants have to adapt quickly. If you did not adapt quickly at the onset of the pandemic, then you were pretty much dead in the water. So we adapted quickly. Fortunately, we've been in business for 62 years. So we've got a great following with our locals, with our tourists alike. So we're very fortunate in that regard.
Chip, how have you adapted? What are some of the things that you did in order to make your restaurant successful over the past couple of years?
You know, we really focused on to-go service. We started with an app that allowed our guests to order online. We partnered with DoorDash, et cetera. Since the pandemic has pretty much ended, we have gone away from our DoorDash service. We have still doing a lot of to-go orders at both locations, and that's been one of the greatest parts of the pandemic. Is it's allowed a bigger reach for our guests that can't come in.
We talk about all the challenges facing small business owners across the country. To you, what remains, despite the hop in economy there in Nashville? What's the biggest challenge for you?
You know, the biggest challenge in the Nashville market, and this is pretty much everywhere, is the cost of food. You know, 1 year ago, one egg cost me 10 cents. Today, an egg cost me 37 cents. So it has, you know, gone up 3 times, almost 4 times from when it was 10 cents a year ago. And then also labor. Fortunately, we are 99% staffed at one of my locations and about 85% staffed at my other location. But just like the cost of food is going up, the cost of labor is going up. We're paying substantially more per hour than we've ever done. So, you know, those are the 2 biggest things that hurt the Nashville market.
You're forced to raise wages in order to get new workers through the doors. Chip, what are you seeing just in terms of staff turnover? Has that also been an issue in terms of employees leaving for other opportunities?
Sure. Well, again, you know, we're very fortunate. We've been open for 62 years. I've got employees that have worked for me for 45 years, some for 27. And, you know, at our original location, we don't have a lot of turnover. At our new location that's been open 1 year in downtown Nashville, we do see a little bit more turnover because there's more restaurants that are right next to us, et cetera. But, you know, we try to have a great place to work. We offer uncommonly good pancakes with Southern hospitality, and that's the kind of staff that we hire. And, you know, they make great money doing it. So we typically keep our staff.
Oh, we got some mouth-watering video on our screen right now. I was already on the menu looking at the chocolate sin. Chip, we talk a lot about inflation. I'm curious what you're seeing from the consumer. Are they cutting back? And are they cutting back on tipping as well?
Again, I'll keep reiterating being fortunate. You know, 62 years, one of our values is being a place of value. So, you know, our menu items aren't that expensive. So luckily, we have not seen inflation hurt our guests coming in the door. And in fact, tipping, I mean, it's our service staff makes phenomenal money. And that's one reason why they stay here. And, you know, to open a second restaurant in a pandemic is unheard of. And we have been very successful this last year opening our restaurant.
Yes, it is. We've lost 90,000 restaurants from pre-pandemic. Chip Bradley, great to have you on. Checking out the pigs in a blanket, the chocolate sin, the Caribbean pancakes. I don't know which one. We'll come see you.
23 different varieties. So You name it, we can do it.
Sounds good, Chip. Appreciate you coming on with us.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
A tax rule change could have a big impact on anyone who's making money online, including small businesses. We have the details for you next.
Hiring struggles have been a pain point for companies during the pandemic. Small businesses in particular are having an extremely hard time amid this very tight labor market. Yahoo Finance's Carrie Hannon is here with more on this. And Carrie, what is the hiring landscape here for small businesses?
Yeah, hi, Shauna. I have spent the last couple of days calling around small business owners around the country, and I looked at the BLS numbers. And, here's the thing, about 80% of the 10 million jobs that are currently open are for small businesses. I mean, we've got a tight labor market, and overall, it's getting a little bit looser, but not much. And for the small business owners, it's been really a struggle trying to hire people. The thing is, they've done the things, they've kind of cut back on their days or, hours, all those kinds of things. But what it really comes down to is trying to find workers. And I spoke to one woman in Youngstown, Ohio. She has one hot cookie is her store. And, she told me, the thing is, I can hire people. She hired 4 people in the last 3 months, but she only has one less. So it's really retaining them. So the two things that seem to be coming into play here is, and she raised her wages by $2 an hour to help attract people. So she said it's not so hard necessarily attracting, but retaining. And so what's happened is small businesses can compete in many cases on wages. They've really tried hard to ramp up there, but it's the compensation. They can't offer the benefits that the big companies can offer in terms of, let's say, healthcare, health insurance or employer provided retirement plans. So that's where they really fall back. And it really is, quite a struggle for them right now. And as we head into 2023.
And it may be difficult to characterize, Carrie, but what is the sentiment you're hearing among small business owners right now?
Yeah, Dave, here's the thing. They're optimistic. I mean, they truly are. A new study came out from the Bank of America that really looked at this, and they found that 66% of the small businesses owners that they spoke to say that they're going to increase revenues next year, and about half plan to expand operations, and 2/3 say, you know, they're ready to weather a recession. So this is really fantastic, sort of an optimistic outlook for the small business, given what they're struggling with. And I'm going to just jump back to my gal at One Hot Cookie. You know, what she told me is that for her, you know, what she's done is she spent the past 2 years, you know, really ramping up her online business, her mobile units. So she has more opportunities. She got a warehouse so that she was able to take advantage of price cuts. And so she has more supply, so not as dependent on the supply chain going into 2023. So she's looking for a pretty good year in 2023 because she's taken these opportunities to really move her business forward. So she is prepared.
And because cookies are on fire right now. I think it was cupcakes and then it was boba tea. And right now, cookies are everywhere, man. Carrie Hannon, good to see you. Thanks so much. All right, small business owners who use fintech platforms like PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App to complete transactions must be mindful of a new reporting rule from the IRS. As a result of the American Rescue Plan Act, anyone earning over $600 for a business-related transaction will have their income reported to the IRS. Now, this is a significant change to prior policy where Americans only reported payments over $20,000 to the IRS. To help us explain what this means for business owners, Dan Geltrude & Company founder joins us now. Good to see you, Dan. What do we need to know and why was this change made?
Well, let's start off with this. The reason why this is getting attention right now is because it's effective for 2022. So now that we're right at the end of the year, everybody's saying, wait a minute, this is happening? This was part of the American Rescue Plan. And basically what it said, as you said before, transactions now, gross transactions, over $600 are now going to be reported to the IRS on Form 1099-K. And the reason this is important is because the IRS gets that form and then they match it to your tax return. Now, when it doesn't match, well, that's when you hear from the IRS. But this is problematic. Let me give you an example. Let's say on eBay, you sell something for $1,000. Now, that's over the $600 new threshold, but you paid $900 for it. So your profit was only $100. But on your tax reporting, it's going to say $1,000. Now, you, as that small business owner, let's say, you have to have that support that it cost you $900 so that you're only taxed on the profit of $100 and not the gross of $1,000. So you see what the problem is here?
Yeah, Dan, I mean, it's hard to kind of, I think, grasp at exactly the impact that this is going to have on small businesses, because when you take a step back, it looks like it shouldn't really be that huge of an impact given the way that it seems like an adjustment in reporting. But I think a lot of people, a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're starting their new business, they're a little bit intimidated by the tax system and what they need to do, how they need to position themselves in order to best, I guess, capitalize and take advantage of certain opportunities that they have. So if you had one piece of advice for small business owners when it comes to their taxes, what would that be?
Well, for right now, what I would say specifically related to this rule, you need to keep all the supporting documentation to be able to prove out your income. Because if the IRS comes a-calling, the burden of proof is on you. So when they say, like in my last example, you had $1,000 of taxable income, you need to be able to prove, wait, I had $900 of cost, my profit was only $100. So the key here is to make sure you have all the supporting documentation for these transactions. And that's burdensome.
Burdensome is the word, and this is why, Dan, so many feared that story when we heard about 87,000 new IRS agents getting hired. What are you hearing from small businesses across the country when it comes to their fears of added taxes and regulations, what they need from the government?
Well, anytime that you have those three initials being spoken of, IRS, you have small businesses that are very concerned. Look, small businesses don't always have the resources to be able to keep everything, let's say, in the type of order that a large company with an entire accounting department would have. So there's always that fear, not necessarily that you're not paying your proper amount of taxes, but that you may have simply made a mistake. And now you're in trouble. So that's really the big fear that small businesses have. Do we have the resources to really be able to defend ourselves if we're up against the IRS? And for the most part, the answer is no.
Dan, real quick, I guess the most common mistake that you see small businesses making when they do file their taxes.
Well, depending on how they go about their taxes, but the biggest mistake that I see is them not understanding deductible expenses. And what ends up happening is they end up actually paying too much tax because they're not aware of things that they can take advantage of as far as deductions.
Very important advice there. Dan Geltrude, great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Well, our final thoughts on the state of small business. We're going to round up what stuck out to us from all the small business owners that we have spoken to over the last hour. We'll be right back.
Well, so often here at Yahoo Finance, we focus on big public companies in the stock market, but it's been a pleasure today hearing from small business owners who are, to your point, the heartbeat, the backbone of our economy. We talked restaurants, we talked retail, taxes, government, you name it, across the entire spectrum. And to me, it's about one word, and it's something we could all learn. It's pivot, and we heard that from restaurant owners, that you have to be willing to pivot given the changing economic times. So many had to do that in COVID. They had to learn to be more nimble. They had to learn to deal with smaller staff. They had to be more digital, which is probably number one. We all should learn how to pivot and not be so stuck in our ways. And in particular, as we face what could be a bit of an economic downturn, going to be looking at an entirely new pivot as well. coming up ahead.
Yeah, certainly. It's very important to be nimble. What really stuck out to me with speaking with so many business owners has been the fact that they are so resilient during this time. Yes, they have had to pivot. They have had to change their business. Right now, they're coming out of the pandemic, particularly for the restaurant owners, and they're navigating what is going to be a very challenging couple of months. Not only do many of them not have enough workers, the workers that they need in order to meet customer demand, but customers are likely going to be pulling back on some of their spending given the recessionary environment. So they're still very resilient. They're very positive. They're putting one foot in front of the other, and they're making the changes that they need to survive during this pretty uncertain time.
And it was nice to hear Carrie Hannon say optimism. They are optimistic about
very
what's
optimistic.
coming.
We always love to hear that. All right, well, that will do it for us today on our Spotlight on Small Business. Thank you so much for joining us.